Namaskar. MA Philosophy, MPY-001, Block number 4, Unit number 2, Visista Dvaita. Objectives. One of the prominent philosophical schools that gave Bhakti a philosophical foundation is Visista Dvaita, which originated in the 11th century CE in South India. The aim of the unit is to familiarize students with this origin and historical development, and to impart to them the basic tenets of this school. Introduction. Visista Dvaita is the name given to the philosophy of Sri Ramanuja and his follower. It means Advait, oneness. Visistadvait, the of the Lord who is qualified. Here the Lord is qualified by a body Sarir constituted by the animate Chit souls and the inanimate Achit universe. While Visistadvait is the name given to the philosophy of Ramanuja is another name. Sri Vaishnavism stands for the religious aspect of this theistic school of Vedanta. The term Sri Vaishnavism refers to the system of thought where Vishnu, along with his consort Sri Lakshmi, occupies the supreme position. She is the mother of the entire creation, being the consort of Lord Vishnu. She also acts as the mediator, Puru, mediator, Purushkara Purushakara between man and God and brings about union between them. It is because of this reason that the theistic philosophical system of Ramanuja is significantly known as Sri Vaishnavism. It is also known as Sri Sampradaya. About Sri is recounted as one of the teachers in the transmission of this tradition. Thus, both the expressions Sri Vaishnavism and Sri Sampradaya signify the role of Sri Lakshmi in the process of liberation. The origin and history of the school. Though the origin of Visistadvaita is historically associated with the philosopher Ramanuja, long before him, from the 2nd to the 9th century CE, the group of 12 Vaishnavite mystics known as Alvar in South India poured out in the regional language of Tamil their love of God and their vision and experience of the divine through ecstatic, soul-stirring and moving metaphors and symbols. Their outpouring constitute one of the most important scriptures of Tamil Vaishnavism, known as Nalaira Divya Prabandhanam. Literally, it means the book of 4,000 divine stanzas that contains the 4,000 songs of these Vaishnavite saints. These songs are regarded as the primary source book for the philosophy of Ramanuja and his followers. Though these songs probably were in circulation among the people of this region in oral form, it was Nathamuni who set them to writing and put them to singing in the temples. But the tradition has it that Nammalavar alias is Sathakop revealed these songs to Nathamuni in his yogic trance. Another great figure in the pre-Ramanuja period was Yamunacharya alias Alavandar, the grandson of Nathamuni. Alavandar picked up Ramanuja as his chosen instrument for propagating the philosophy of the Vedas. He wrote several works such as Siddhi and Giratha, Giratha Samgrah and Strotratna. Ramanuja never forgets to express his mm, indebtedness indebtedness to Yamuna by proclaiming his glory in his works. The works of Ramanuja such as Sri Bhasya, Vedartha Sangrah and Gadyatraya, Gadyatraya and his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita serves as the strong philosophical foundation for the development of Visistadvaita philosophy. Yet it should be noted that some of Ramanuja's works in many ways are further developments on and reminiscent of Yamuna's writings. For instance, while Ramanuja's commentary on Brahma Sutra finds in it good deal of arguments from Yamuna's Siddhitre, former's work of Saranagati, Gadya in an imitation of Yamuna's Stotra Ratna. After Ramanuja, the school of Visista that got divided in course of time into two groups, uh, Vadagalai, the northern school, and Thengalai, southern school, the separation of which was based on 18 doctrinal matters, while the former sub-school is founded vastly on the views of Vedanta Deshika. The latter owes allegiance to the ideas of Pillai Lokacharya, the scriptural foundations of the school. According to Vishishtadvaita tradition, the hymns of Alvar Divya Prabandhanam were considered to be equal in importance to Sanskritic Vedas. Sri Vaishnavites call Divya Prabandhanam as the Tamil Ved, and they regarded it as authoritative as Prasthanatraya, the triple canon of Vedanta philosophy, Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and Brahma Sutra. Since this school considers both Sanskrit and Tamil scriptures as normative, normative and fundamental, the Vaishishta system itself is regarded as Ubhaya Vedanta, double Vedanta. To the group of authoritative texts, they also add the Vaishnava Agamas and the Puranas, especially the Bhagavad Purana. As mentioned above, one of the distinguishing character of this school is the preeminence given to Alavas and their vision as supreme models of Vaishnavite tradition. According to Vaishnavite belief, these Alavas were incarnations of Lord Vishnu, attendants such as Adi, Sesa, and Garud, and the ac- accoutrements such as conch, sakha, and the uh, discus chakra. The Alavas, 12 in numbers, including a woman saint Andal, were born in all castes and strata of society and in areas where widespread in the south. Among the Alavas, the most important saint is Nammalvar, whose work Tiru, Tiruvai is compared to Samved in its richness and depth, as their name always Alavas, meaning the ones who dived into the divine, denote they were immersed in God love and God bliss, and their primary mission was nothing but spreading the glory and love of God. It is to be noted that their vertical love for God encompassed their horizontal relationship with other fellow Vaishnavites and other human beings needing God's mercy. Philosophy of Visishtadvait. An overview. Visishtadvait philosophy believes that the supreme reality is Sagun Brahm, a personal being with countless auspicious attributes, and it is qualified whole of which Brahman is the soul, and the Jeev and the Jagat, the soul and material nature, constitute the body, which has an inseparable relationship with the whole. Though it is non-dual whole, yet it is characterized by internal differences in it. This is why this one reality is called Visishtadvait, meaning qualified non-dualism. Here the non-dualism reality is made known by its qualities, the souls and the world, which are of two different natures. These two kinds of entities are distinct yet real parts of the whole. The Visishtadvait was not coined by Ramanuja but came to be used by others afterward. Some regard the doctrine of Visishtadvait as absolute realism, without any place for illusion of any kind. There is no category like Maya, which is described in Advaita as an indeterminate, existent, non-existent entity. Ramanuja considers such a description as a philosophical fantasy. Maya for him is the power of Brahman and its effects are absolutely real, though changing. Theory of knowledge. According to this school, perception, inference, and scriptures are valid as source of knowledge, and each valid source is an affirmation of reality in its own domain. Unlike Sankara, Ramanuja does not admit the distinction between illusory perception and true perception. For even in the so called illusory perception, there is some perception of reality. Even in the famous mistaken cognition of cell as silver, when someone makes a statement that this is silver, it is not only this that refers to what is real, but also silver. In other words, both are the reality of this, the object, and that of the silver, and the identification of the object as something as are real. Visista that argue for their point with the help of the doctrine of Panchi, Panchi, Panchikarma, Panchikarna, quintuplication, according to which in any given gross element the other four elements are also present as subordinate parts. This school would say that all things should be present in all things. In shell there are particles of silver, and in the so-called illusion Maya, this is silver. It is the particles of silver that are perceived, and so the silver cognition in shell is of the real and not of what is fictitious or imaginary. Even in the case of mistaken identity of marriage as water, there in some truth in it, because in the desert sand which belongs to the category of element earth, there is the element of water also. Thus knowledge necessarily refers to what is real, even in the case where cognitions are considered to be erroneous. This theory of error is known as yatharth Khyativad, the doctrine of the apprehension of what is real. If so, how does one distinguish between valid cognition and invalid cognition? If both refers to what is real, the distinction is not a logical one. We cannot even say that is in or erroneous cognition. The reference is to a part of what is perceived, whereas in valid cognition, the reference is to the whole. For invalid cognition too, it is only a part of what of that is perceived in cell. For example, the cell particles do not constitute the whole of the object presented. They too are only a part, although the predominant part. Psychologically, the experience of cell as silver takes place because of greed, defective sense organ, etc., and one sees only the silver element, although it is minute, and omits the notice the other elements of which the cell element is predominant. The distinction between truth and error can be accounted for in terms of success and failure, respectively. In practice, what is of service to people in life is true, and what fails to serve people in their practical needs is said to be false. This is why Visista defines valid knowledge as that which reveals an object as it is, and is useful in practice. Thus, all knowledge, according to Ramanuj, is of the real. Visista is known for its peculiar view of dual aspect of knowledge, Gyan of the Jivas. The knowledge or consciousness of the Jiva has two aspects. The first is its basic or substantive consciousness, dharmi gyan, and the second its attributive consciousness, dharma bhuta gyan. By virtue of dharmi gyan, the jiva is only self-aware. It is the dharma bhuta gyan that makes it aware of other including Iswara. If the substantive consciousness is like light, the attributive consciousness is like luminosity. In the state of ignorance, it is almost one with unconscious matter prakriti, but its dharmi gyan keeps up its individuality and the possibility of the developing the dharma bhut gyan further. What stands in the way of this expansion of dharma bhut gyan is its load of karma from beginningless time. It is the creative process of Ishvara that help in development. When fully developed, it embraces the all-knowing dharma bhut gyan of Ishvara himself. The jiva, however, never merges in him. Its dharmi gyan keeps up its individuality, just as the wick light maintains its separateness even when its effulgence becomes submerged in the brilliance of the sun. Brahman is the basis of all existence. The universe is composed of Chit sentient, and Achit the non-sentient, and both have their source in Brahman. And He is the indwelling self within all and the ruler of all. Brahman is both the first and the final cause of the universe. Like in any other system of Indian thought, the universe alternates between the phase of evolution and dissolution. In the phase of dissolution, the universe goes back to Brahman and remains latent in Brahman, and creation or evolution is the actualization of the latent. The one becomes the one becomes many in the sense that Brahman, by exercise of his will, evolves into 24 categories and the jivas of individual souls. Thus, Brahman is the material as well as the efficient cause of the universe. To put it differently, God, as the source and support of the universe, has transformed himself into the cosmic manifold, and he is the indwelling self in his creation, the ruler and director of the cosmic process. The evil that the universe contains in the result of the karma of the individuals of for whom God is the dispenser of the law, but God himself remains unaffected uh, by evil and is forever absolutely good. God, though he has transformed into the universe of sentient and non-sentient form, remains distinct from them. It is defined in Upanishads as Satyam, real, Jnanam, conscious, and Anatman, infinite. Ramanuja, while commenting on this text, on this text, states that because of this distinctive attribute, God is above and beyond matter, a changing phenomena and distinct from individual souls caught up in the cycle of birth and rebirth. Though the universe is the transformation of Brahman, he remains by his nature beyond change, and though immanent, he is transcendent. As mentioned earlier, Brahman is related to the chaos as the soul is related to the body. As human beings have a soul and a body, and as the soul, though distinct from the body, yet controls and guide it, live in it, and uses it as an instrument. Similarly, Brahman is the soul of the universe, the source and subsequent subsistence source and sustenance of all beings within it, and the ruler of all. In the metaphor of body soul relationship between God on the one hand and the world and the individual jivas on the other hand, are present threefold relations defined by Ramanuja: Adhar and Adheya, support and the supported, Niyamak and Niyam, the controller and the controlled, the Sesin and Sesa, the Lord and his servant. God, as the controller of the universe, is absolutely good and the redeemer of all being. Evil and suffering are caused by individuals' karmas. Karmas, good or evil deed, create happiness or misery. But by karmas alone, man cannot redeem himself. Only the grace of God can save him. God is therefore the Savior. In this definite love, his absolute goodness, he is forever merciful and takes our avatar to redeem them. Jivas or individual souls. The Visista the philosophy established that the finite self is an eternal spiritual entity, yet not a separate self-existent entity, but an organ, an element of Brahman. It is part of Brahman, essentially different from him, but inseparably bound to him. Jiva always maintains its distinctiveness, even though it is part of Brahman. Even in the state of moksha, it does not lose its individuality. Jivas are infinite in number. It is monadic in substance. Shvetasvetar Upanishad says that the self is infinitely smaller than the hundredth parts of the point of a hair divided 100 times, and yet it is infinite in range. The monadic character of jiva is its natural form. It is not caused or conditioned by any physical limitations. The finite self is essentially an attribute prakar of God. As substance and attribute, they are inseparably associated with God on the one hand and distinct from one another and from God on the other hand. As inseparably associated with God, the individual self is eternal, and as distinct from him, it has the personality of its own. The jivas are essentially of the nature of knowledge, jnana swarup. They are not merely of the nature of knowledge, but are also the substrata of knowledge, jnana, Jnanasray. The individual self, which is the knower, is also the agent of action, karta, and the enjoyer of pleasure and pain, bhokta. It is to be noted that jiva is regarded as knower in the sense, and that is the asraya or the substratum of knowledge through which all experiences take place. By being a substratum, asraya for jnana, which is subject to modifications, jiva is not subject to any change. In the same way, uh, कर्तृत्व and भोक्तृत्व admitted in jiva do not involve change in it. Jiva is karta or doer in the sense that it is the ashray or substratum for krati or effort. Effort is caused by a desire, ichcha to an act. It is therefore a mental modifications on an avastha of jnana. It is not to be confused with the actual physical activity which follows subsequent to the desire to do an act. Insofar as jiva is the ashray for the kriti, which is a particular state of knowledge, jiva becomes the karta. The change involved in the physical activity does not affect the karta. The same explanation holds good for jiva being a bhokta. Pleasure and pain are different states of mind resulting either in the agreeable disposition of mind, anu अनुकूलत ज्ञान or in a disagreeable disposition of mind pari prati pratikulat jnan respectively. A jiva is the ashray for such states of experience. It is regarded as bhokta or enjoyer of pleasure and pain. The change involved in such mental dispositions applies to the attributive knowledge and not to jiva. Such an explanation is logically tenable in the Visista system because of the admission of Dharma Bhut Gyan as distinct from Jivatam. The modifications applies to the former while the latter remains unaffected. The means of liberation according to Visista system, Bhakti, love, devotion and Prapatti, wholehearted self-surrender are the alternate means of liberation. They are adopted by people according to their own eligibility and taste. Bhakti basically means loving devotion towards God. The term bhakti derived from the root bhaj, to share, partake, to enjoy, calls for the reciprocal relationship between the deity and the devotee. Bhakti is not a mere emotional pursuit. According to Ramanuj, it involves training one's mind and intellect towards love of God. Non-stop constant contemplation is the very essence of bhakti. It implies an un unperturbed total concentration on God. Ramanuja compares it to the continuous flow of oil poured from one vessel to another. Uh, तैल धारणवाद अविच्छिन्न स्मृति Sanatan Parampara. In Ramanuja's view, various terms such as Upasanam, Dhyanam, Nididhyasanam found in Upanishads along with the term Jnanam are also synonymous with Bhakti. By Bhakti is mean under unbroken chain of thought on God. When that is assured, liberation is near at hand. Traditionally, Bhakti has several aspects like Sravana, listening to the discourse on the Lord, Kirtana, singing His glories, Smarana, remembering Him, um, Pada Sevanam, serving Lord's lotus feet, worshipping Him in the sacred place, Archanam, doing puja to Him according to the rules laid down in the sacred text, Vandanam, doing namaskaras, prostrations, Dasyam, serving him like a servant, Sakhyam becoming his friend, and Atmani Vedanam, offering everything one has, including the body, to the Lord. Sri Vaishnava tradition points out that this bhakti can be cultivated through 7 steps called the sadhana saptak. They are vivek, vimoh, abhyas, vivek, vimok, अभ्यास क्रिया कल्याण अना अनावसद and anu Anudharsh. They can be explained as follows: Vivek, discrimination of food, taking sattvic food, sweets food, ghee, etc. make one's mind pure. Purity of mind leads to steady contemplation of the Lord. Number आहार शुद्ध, शब्द शुद्धि, सत्य शुद्धु, ध्रुव स्मृति. When the food is pure, mind becomes pure. When the mind is pure, recollection of Lord becomes steady. Vimoka, cessation of all desire for material enjoyment. Abhyas, repeated thinking on the Lord. Kriya, performing five great yajnas. Pancha, Pancha Mahayajnas, according to one's capacity, they are the study of sacred scriptures, teaching them. Brahma Yajna, offering food to the departed spirits. Putra Yajna, Pitra Yajna, offering food to the departed spirits. Pitra Yajna, performing fire sacrifices to the god. Daiva Yajna, offering food to the other beings like animal. Bhuta Yajna, and hospitality to the guest. Narayana. It may be noted that according to the traditional view, those who are not invested with the sacred thread and women are not eligible to perform the first of the five yajnas listed above, namely Brahma Yajna, which involves teaching, studying the Vedas. Brahma here means the Veda. Kalyan, cultivating auspicious qualities like truthfulness, non-injury to the animal, and straightforwardness. An Anavashad, displaying unwavering faith, not losing one's heart even in the worst calamity, but continuing contemplation on food with cheerfulness. Anu Anudharsh, maintaining moderation and not becoming overjoyed even when there appear indications that God is becoming favorable. Visista that holds that although these seven steps are prescribed to cultivate bhakti, they are not easy for an ordinary man to follow. Hence, it is clear that bhakti is difficult to practice in the manner expected of the devotees. In contradiction to bhakti, prapatti or wholehearted surrender is easier. It can be adopted by one and all without any distinctions of caste, creed, or sex. It can be adopted at any time and place. All are eligible for it. Prapatti is also known as a saranagati, न्यास, भारन्यास, आत्मनिक्षेप, त्याग, संन्यास, namaskarta etc. Prapatti, like bhakti, is only a kind of mental attitude towards God. If one thinks one can please God by one's own personal effect, like kirtana, vandana, etc., one is called a bhakta. If, however, one feels convinced that one cannot please God by one's own personal effect, and that nothing apart from God's grace can save him or her, one becomes a prapanna. Prapatti needs to be done only once. It need not be done again and again as bhakti. There are five subsidiaries angas or prapatti. They are uh, anukul sankalp, resolve to do only things favorable to God and wishing good for all. Uh, Pratikule varjana, avoiding things disliked by God. Uh, raks, uh, Rakshasyati इति विश्वासः महा महाविश्वासः, firm faith in the saviorship of God. Gotritva Varnam, requesting the Lord to be the protector. Atmanikshep, Karpanyam, placing one's burden at the feet of the Lord in all meekness and humility. These five angas make prapatti complete and efficacious. Of all these, Mahavishwas is the very heart of prapatti. Without it, all the other angas become insignificant. The later Sri Vaishnava teachers add one more point to the means of liberation apart from bhakti and prapatti. Uh, Acharya Nishtha is also capable of procuring moksha. It consists of trusting one's own Acharya as the savior. Those who entertain this view argue that since one's Acharya himself has done prapatti to the Lord, one need not separately do it. The Tengalai holds that since Sri Ramanuj did prapatti in his lifetime, his followers, direct and indirect, are exempted from doing individual prapatti. The Vadagalai, however, contends that what Sri Ramanuja did was for his own sake and that the successors of his have to do Saranagati separately for their own good. According to those who advocate this Acharya Nishtha, even the Supreme Being becomes unimportant when compared to the Guru. Madhura Kavi Alvar, for instance, declared in his Kanin Shiruthambu that his own Guru Namalwar was more important to him than Lord Krishna himself, whom Namalwar resorted to. The, the two sects of Sri Vaishnavism, as mentioned earlier, after Ramanuja, Vaishnavism got divided into two sects, namely Vadagalai and Thengalai. While Vadagali considered the Sanskrit scripture Vedas more authoritative than the Tamil scriptures Divya Prabandhanam. Thengalai believed just the opposite. Subsequently, Vadagalai privileged the teachings of rishis over those of the Alvas, and the Thengalai considered the teaching of Alvas more important than those of rishis. Further, while the northern school believed in Markata Nyaya, monkey's model for moksha liberating, giving more emphasis on effort than grace. The southern school promoted Marjara Nyaya, cat's model, and regarded grace more important than human effort to attain liberation. The northern school recommended bhakti, unbroken chain of thought on God, as the means of liberation for the male twice born, and advocated prapatti, self-surrender to others, as another means of liberation. The southern school regarded prapatti as the only means of salvation and prescribed it for all. Even if one were to practice bhakti, it has to mature into prapatti for one to attain liberation. Comparison with other traditions. The philosophy of Visista that can be easily compared with if the philosophy of Visista that easily can be easily compared with and contrasted to other school of thought. For instance, while Sankara's Advait believes in Nirguna Brahma as the supreme reality, Ramanuja's school regards Sagun Brahma as the supreme reality. For Shankara, the world is unreal, and for Ramanuja, the world is real. For Shankara, Gyan Marg is the only means of liberation, while Ramanuja believes in the Bhakti Prapatti Marg to attain liberation. Further, while Shankara believes in Jivan Mukti liberation while living, Ramanuja believes in Videha Mukti liberation only after death. Besides, one can find similarity between Sri Vaishnavism and Christianity. Both believe in the idea of personal God as the supreme being. Both believe in liberation after death. Both believe in the role of grace in salvation, and both understand liberation as a state of union with the ultimate without losing one's distinct identity. Let us sum up. In the history of philosophy in India, Vishishtadvait is described as a system of thought that gave a strong philosophical and theological foundation to the practice of bhakti found in the popular traditions of different linguistic cultures across the country. While one can become very of intense bhakti as the form of emotional outburst. Vishishtadvait has brought intellectual content to the practice of bhakti and prapatti as it is described above. By doing this, on the one hand, they have built an intellectual domain for bhakti, but on the other hand, they have shown the limitations of human mind and its effort in matter of faith by their belief in prapatti. Besides, historically speaking, Vishishtadvait grew as a competing philosophical discourse to the Advait of Sankara, while the latter makes this world as unreal in order to preserve the transcendence of God. The former found a way out by making the world as real part of God, thus enabling its practitioners to deal with the world in a non-dualistic and non-conflictual manner. Thus, Visishtadvait can be praised as a balanced philosophical system of thought in India. Thank you.